So in this video, we're going to go over the zRemesher process. Now, to start, I have my model, my guy here, and he's at a point where I'd say I have all my forms in and I'm feeling ready to add in some of those final details. So to get this started, first thing I need to do is I have my model here that's been dynameshed. I go over to my subtool panel and I'm going to duplicate it. So we have two models now, one that we're going to zRemesh and one that we're going to use as our source to project our details from. So with our one model selected, to get this started, we're just going to go down to Geometry, zRemesher, and the setting in here you care about the most is Target Polygon Count. And what this will do is determine how dense it's going to be. The higher the number, the denser it'll be. And we can look at some of these other options as they become relevant. But I'm going to adjust this down a little bit, and then I'm going to press zRemesh. And then you can see its progress up at the top here. I'm going to let it do its thing. And once it's done, we can see what it did. Now, to view the wireframe, we go down to the side of the viewport here, and we have Draw Polyframe, so we can turn that on, and this will show us what it did. So, this looks pretty good. This should work for our purposes. If there's some spots of funkiness that you don't like, you can always, adjust the resolution a little bit and try it again. So, once we have our new lower poly mesh that we're happy with, the next step will be to add some simple UVs to it. Now to do that, we're going to go up to Z plugin up at the top. We're going to go down to the UV master. We're going to then enable control painting. Now what control painting does is it lets us either protect an area from seams. So when we press that, it brings us into a painting mode where we can paint on some colors. And what this is telling it is to, when it makes its UV unwrap, not to put any seams where we're painting here, but instead we can also attract seams to other places. So like in the case of a head, I want the seams to end up on the back of the head. That's where I would like them to be. We can say even if it wants to cut it around the neck or around the back here, that would be fine too. So once we, determine where and where we do not want seams, we press unwrap. And you can unwrap it without doing the control painting, but at that point you just leave it up to the program to kind of decide how it unwraps. So if we want to view our unwrap, we go back to UV master, then we press flatten, and this will, flatten it out and show us what we got. Now this one worked pretty well, so it looks like it separated it into the face, the head, and then we got the rest of the body, the neck, and such on this one. But you notice that the whole face area has no seams in it because we told it not to put any seams there. So we go back to Z plugin, we press unflatten to return our model back, and then I'm just going to go back to a basic material. And there we go. Now we have a low poly mesh with some UVs. So the next step will be to project back on our details. So first thing we need to do is to give our model some subdivision levels. So we'll just press Control D on the keyboard a number of times. I'll give it about 4 subdivision levels. So now you see when we move it around, it kind of goes back to the first subdivision level. And if we turn our draw polyframe back on, we can see how it, evenly subdivided all of our polygons. Alright, so to project the detail, I can turn this back off. We go to our subtool menu. While selected on our newly zRemeshed mesh, we make sure our detail mesh is visible. This won't work if it's not visible. So I just press the little eyeball icon to make sure it's visible. Now with those two visible and while we're selected on our new mesh, we go down to project and then press project all. And so what this did is it like suctioned the new mesh to the old mesh. So if we hide our old mesh, we will now have a new mesh with the nice topology, but it still has all of our details. And now you could take this mesh and you could go in and you could start sculpting in some additional details, some additional finer details. And then if you want more, if you're getting really in there and you want even more density, it's just a matter of giving yourself another subdivision level. And this is really how you can, take the time to add those final details and really finish off and polish your model. This would also be a great time to add asymmetry to your model if you want to give it a little more character. So in this case, maybe I turn off symmetry, and I start to, using my move tool on a lower subdivision level, you can change those in geometry. All your subdivision levels are here. Maybe I go down to the first one. Now I can start to, make larger changes, make some subtle asymmetry to my guy to give him a little more personality. Maybe he has a crooked nose, bit crooked nose, a little, his face isn't perfect. Then when we go back to our high subdivision level, all our details are still there. So this is a great way to, process your model in the last steps. So for your first study, this is about as far as we'll be looking for it to be taken. I want to see that you created your model using Dynamesh, got it to a point where you're ready to add the final details, then you go through this zRemesher process, add some simple UVs, and add your final details. And so that's what we'll be looking for. So that's the zRemesher process laid out for you.